I pray in particular for President Donald Trump and his team as they continue to bring about change to the country.
Nothing, it's just, it's everywhere I look now. What? This affirmative blaction.
Like, there's nobody that gets judged more than a straight white male.
Kind of underestimating just how probably sexist and racist this country is by thinking that Hillary Clinton can actually win. They wouldn't vote on a woman that they like, let alone one that they hate.
Compelling white children to go to school with an inferior race is the final nail in a coffin.
In our laws? Yeah. Every night, thousands of these parasites stream across the border like some fucking pinata exploding. Don't laugh. There's nothing funny going on here. This is about your life.
I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the game.
He looked at me and he said, if you ain't any better than a nigger, son, who are you better than?
Democracy.
We do.
Yeah,
I do.
You do, don't you?
I
But
do.
that's because you're a white man. It's a democracy for you. It is not a democracy for black people. This is not
really basic human rights, and it's right and wrong at this point, and I can't see another commercial and see her disguising these policies behind the words Tennessee Christian values. Those aren't Tennessee Christian values. I live in Tennessee. I am Christian.
Nation, particularly to Christian people, should be completely, totally based on what George Washington said to Jesus.
there. A vote for Trump is a vote for white Christian nationalism. It is.
Back in the day, would Alan Marshall take a damn black cat, whoop their ass and throw them in the cell? I'd run for here. Yeah, well, it's not like that no more. I know. Take them down here on Mud Creek and hang them up with the damn rope. Yeah. But you can't do that. Think about it, they got more rights than we got.
What they really don't know is
And that's the thing about it. 20 years ago, I would have done something like that.
People that believe in this white Christian nationalism that exists. You need to call them out or you're culpable. They're normalizing hate. What they're saying is if you don't look like them, if you don't pray like them, if you don't love like them, then you don't count.
check against white nationalism, great replacement theorists, Christian nationalists, white fragility, fascists, and the twice impeached convicted felon, former president and would-be dictator, Donald Trump. The Bible says to stick with your own kind, stick with your own race, because just like blackbirds, blackbirds not gonna mix with redbirds or whatever, they can stick with their own kind. Niggers can come and go up here as they please. There's nothing said to them. But when they start coming up here to our schools and making us mix with them, we don't like that.
We asked her to find the Bible passages that prohibit integration. She looked long and hard, knew the verses were in there somewhere. She read us one that she believes means God turned Cain black as a curse for killing Abel.
A gift from God that's trying to save our country. I do believe it.
Trump was chosen by God. Do you believe that?
I truly believe that was divine intervention in 16. Absolutely. I'm a believer.
Without a doubt.
This is the replacement theory, but
It was not a theory, it's a reality. The Canadian population, like the American population, the European population, replaced.
Peace, family. We are back again. And today we will be building on white Christian nationalism, right? White Christian nationalism. What is that? And what did Tupac mean when he created the song A White Man's World, right? Now that's my favorite Tupac song, and it's also my favorite rap song that was ever created. I believe that it's the best rap song to this day, and it came out in 1996, right? The Test of Time, I believe it's the greatest rap song to this day, the emotion that it draws, but many people do not understand what Tupac was referring to when he created that song, A White Man's World. And that's what we are here to build on, and we will look at white Christian nationalism. What is it? What is it so you can identify it? You have to know, right? So let's look at this. To deal with this subject, we're going to have to go back in time, right? Put your seatbelts on. Got them on? Let's go. First off, it's important to understand that the transatlantic slave trade was put into effect by the Catholic Church. That's right. Pope Francis just passed, right? The Catholic Church. And it was a big deal in America, especially for the Spanish people, right? The Spaniards, right? So when you look at that, you're dealing with America's ties to the Catholic Church. It's at the origin of the start of America, right? The start of America is tied in with the Catholic Church because the Catholic Pope put into an effect in the 1400s two documents. one being the Papal Bull of 1493 and one being the Doctrine of Discovery, right? And these were documents that said that Europeans could enslave any group of people that did not believe in the religion that they believed in, right? And that being Christianity. So that's already what you call Christian nationalism and white Christian nationalism, right? Now we all know that many Europeans did not start off Christians, right? They became Christians later on. In fact, for a long time they were at war with the Christians, right? But around the time of Antioch is when many of them they became Christians, right? At Antioch. So we got to deal with that, right? That's just an extra bid on. So with these Christian documents, Europeans could now go around the world and enslave non-European people, right? And once conquered, they will push their language and religion onto these conquered people, right? Although the European didn't create Christianity, right? He used it all the time and still does to this day for political gain, right? So the transatlantic slave trade put into effect by the Catholic Pope, and the voyage was funded, by Queen Isabella. It's Queen Isabella, I believe, and she sent Christopher Columbus. She funded the trip for Christopher Columbus, right? Who was also a Catholic, an Italian Catholic, right? And some say he was Jewish, right? It was a article last year that came out and said that Christopher Columbus also had Jewish ties, right? But he's Catholic, right? He's Catholic. So again, you start to see this at the origin of America with Christopher Columbus and the Catholic Pope with these two documents, the Papal Bull of 1493. 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue, right? The Papal Bull of 1493 was put into effect, giving him the right. So when you hear people say, "Oh, how could Christopher Columbus discover America when people were already on this land?" You have to understand that that's documentation talk. That's documentation talk because the doctrine of discovery, right? This is what they would call whitewashing, right? Whitewashing, creating laws to cover your agenda, right? To cover your agenda. So you create laws like the doctrine of discovery, where now we can, if you don't believe what we believe, which the natives didn't, right? We could take this land, right? We could enslave you and force you to work on this land. Papal Bull 1493, right? So at America's origin, you find white Christian nationalism pushed by white males, right? So from the 1400s to the 1800s, yep, that's 400 years, right? So 400 years from 1400s to the 1800s, right? From 1400s to the 1800s, because Columbus was coming in the 1400s, the Papal Bull of 1493, right? So for about 400 years, Europeans who were Christians were brainwashed that European people were more human and more godly than anybody else, right? This is one thing that they believe, right? Especially their black property and slaves, right? So when Columbus came over to America, him and his brother, and they brought their voyage, right? They were greeted with love. The natives gave them gold, right? And they showed them love, and they got conquered for that, right? They got conquered for that. And the natives fought on the land, right? The natives fought on the land to keep, to try to keep the attack from being taken over. But that, they were outmatched. They were outmatched, and many began to die off from the diseases that the European conquistadors were bringing over, right? So many of the natives, the Arawak and the Taino people, that were later on called Indians, many of them begin to die off, right? They begin to die off. And as they begin to die off, that's when they went and got slaves, Africans, part itself, from West Africa, right? And don't get it twisted, that Taino and the Arawak people were also a brown people. They were a brown people. We're not going to deal with that too much, but these were a brown people, right? Just like the East Indian, right? That's why some say Columbus believed when he got to America, he was in East India, right? That's what many said. Now the Moors, some Moors helped Columbus get to the Americas. Many won't teach you that, but it's a fact, right? And maritime travel, he got a lot of that gain from the Moors. The Moors have been coming to the Americas for a very, very long time, and that's why you even find some of the army kids, right? So people black even like from the Mali Empire being coming back and forth to the Americas for a long time, dealing in trade with the natives, right? With the natives and Europeans as they coming out of the dark ages catch wind of this, right? And they have Moors help Columbus find his way over here. But when he got over here, he seen the people were just they were a brown people, dark people, and he also called them niggas. He called them niggas too, right? And you got to understand this, right? So later on they get labeled Indian, right? The indigo, darker people, and when that group begins to, die off from the diseases that's coming by way of the conquistadors and the males, many of them are slaughtered. They do fight back and put up great fights, right, on the land. But many of them is they begin to die off from the diseases that's coming, and when this happens, it's a financial way, right? This is the whole movement is financial gain, right? But it's done by the doctrine of the discovery, right? So it's done in Catholic writing, but the agenda is political gain and financial gain for resources. You have to understand that the Christian nationalist moves with a Christian agenda, right? But that's propaganda. What he's really after is control. Control over resources, control over humans, control over women, control over anybody that's not a white male, even white women. You have to understand this. Now, when many of these natives begin to die off, right, in this specific area, they begin to get Africans from West Africa later on, and they bring them over, right? And sometimes they breed many of these Africans with the natives, right? They breed them, and that's why many black people grandmas would say, "Yo, we native, we got native in us," right? Some was already here, but then some got bred, right? And then some is just straight African, right? That's why the history is a mystery when it comes to black people for a lot of black Americans, because your history have been so traumatic. The black Holocaust, right? It's a real thing, and it went on for 400 years, right? Now, again, so now they're bringing West African slaves, right? And these West African slaves are beaten, slaughtered, the same tactics that they was giving to the natives, right? And and brutalizing them. And one weapon that they had to enslave this group also was the Bible, right? The Bible, where they would hit them with scriptures, obey your master, right? And you got to understand that white Christian nationalists, although they are Christian, they push an agenda that other groups are not necessarily full blooded humans, right? Which gives them a right to be able to mistreat this group. This is what they believe, and later on we'll see that this is what Hitler even ran off of. This was Darwin, and where they dealing with the science, the racist science that deal with measuring the skull of different races groups of the human hierarchy, right? They were trying to justify why they were able to control these groups, right? Saying that they were 3/5 of a man and all this, but it's really just for political gain and control, right? They wanted free labor, right? So slavery and the transatlantic slave trade all is free labor based, right? But it's pushed with the Bible. You gotta understand that, right? Now, um, image was also a big thing. When you conquer a group, you got to deal with image. Just like in today's time, Black Americans are still a conquered group, right? And we don't understand how that it's a war on image. We don't understand the power of imagery, right? But it's a war on our image. And when you see that, rap is not controlled, right? We don't get to choose our rappers, right? That means and we don't get to choose our rappers, and they're giving us the worst of the worst and the worst of the worst movies. And they're taking those movies and they're taking those rappers and they putting them everywhere. That's a war on your image, right? Image is powerful, and that's why during this time it was important for the white Christian nationalists to portray Jesus and Christian figures as European, right? Even though the Bible takes place in North Africa for the most part, Northeast Africa, right? Mesopotamia, places in the Middle East, right? Egypt, right, which is Northeast Africa. Now, but it was vital, and it was a mind twist, right? A mind uck to make blacks and browns, enslaved people, pray to white Jesus, right? Now, this is a faith-based religion, and Jesus can be, in my opinion, whatever color you want him to be. And that's why, when you go to a different country, you may see Jesus in Asia painted as an Asian man. However, in this time of war, this was a strategic plan to paint Jesus as white, right? For slaves to see, as you praying to a white Jesus, right? The subconscious, what it does to you subconsciously, right? This was a war, so Europeans in ancient times made sure to paint Jesus as a white man, right? They made sure to paint Jesus as a white man because the human mind can't identify, right? It can't identify, the subconscious mind can't identify what real and fake. So although the depiction of Jesus in the Bible, right, and told by Josephus looks nothing like this, right? It was a tactic to make the religion more political based for the Europeans, and it worked. And even Black Americans for 400 years were affected mentally by the images of Jesus as someone that does not look anything like them, right? But you pray to him every day, right? So in many communities, blacks mistreat blacks and look down on blacks, and we say things like, growing up, yo nigga, you so black. And we have to look into a song like Killer Priest, the Bible by Killer Priest. It's one of hip hop's greatest songs, right? Let's look into this verse by Killer Priest. The white image of Christ is really Caesar Borgia, and the second son of Pope Alexander, the sixth of Rome. And once the picture was shown, that's how the devils tricked my dome. I prophesied to save a man, but no one gave a damn. For my nation, the seed of Abraham, blessed with the tongue of Hebrew. Now we strung off needles, and some are plunging evils. So study and be wise in the days of darkness. Peace to my nephew Marcus, right? Now, he said the white image of Christ is really Caesar Borgia, and the second son of Pope Alexander, the sixth of Rome. And once the picture was shown, that's how the devils tricked my dome, right? That's when hip hop was hip hop, right? Now you have to understand that, right? This is a war tactic also, right? So war is done on the mind. The first rule of war is deception. It's deception, right? So when you attack a group, when you got to conquer a group, you hit them all. You have war with them on all fronts, right? And that was a tactic also. Now, the Bible can be used for war and peace. It can be used for war and peace, right? Nat Turner was taught to read the Bible from a good slave's point of view, right? Obey the master, right? Which was the white man. This is an example of the Bible being used for political gain over another group of humans, right? However, later on, Nat Turner was able to use the Bible to find a rebellion lane, right? And free the slaves, just like Harriet Tubman did, right? Just like Harriet Tubman, she wasn't able to read the Bible. However, she got the information. She learned about the lane of the Bible that's rebellion based, right? Which led to Nat Turner's rebellion. Nat Turner's rebellion, because Nat Turner was taught to read the Bible, and originally he was reading it from a victimized standpoint of a slave, right? And that's how they liked him. They would teach Nat Turner to read the Bible, and then they would, since he could read, he would go to different plantations and read those enslaved type scriptures. Obey your master, don't talk back, submit. He would give these to blacks, to black slaves on different plantations, right? And that was a tactic that they was using him as, right? They was using him as a propaganda tool, right? And then one day he woke up. He woke up and he realized, oh, you know what? I'm going to use this script to rebel, let my people free, right? And you should look into that. You really should look into that, Nat Turner. But that's one. So many people say that the Bible is a book of concord, but many rebellions came from the Bible. So you have to understand that also. Now, by the 1800s, the country was at odds because after 400 years, the North now wanted to abolish slavery. And the South, which is the Bible Belt to this day, the South, which is the Bible Belt. So when you hear Trump say, I want to give the states back the power, he's dealing with the states in the South, right? Without big government on top, the South has always never wanted to change. Go back to the Civil War, the South didn't want to change. They didn't want to give their slaves up, right? They liked it the way that it was. And if it wasn't for the North winning the war, the South would have kept it the way that it was. The Great Migration, blacks went up north to the Midwest to get away from the South, right? Because the South is rooted in, is baked in the crust of America, right? They feel that it's godly for the groups to be separated. The white boys should never be with the black boys, and the white girls should never be with the black girls. They believe this is godly. That's the white Christian nationalists, right? They believe it's ungodly. It's ungodly to bring the groups together. You have to understand this. So, as we move into the Industrial Revolution, as the Industrial Revolution was taking place, right, which was factory work, it would free black Americans in the South, right? However, the Southern whites did not want to do that. They wanted to keep their black slaves. Right? And they felt like the North was being ungodly because in their mind, white people should always be above black people in a Christian society, right? So the South went to war. That's how passionate they were. They went to war, right? They went to war with their own country, right? That's a domestic terrorist. Right? That's how strongly they felt about slaves being free, humans being free, right? And the South lost the war. The South did lose the war. And the black slaves were finally free. But no thanks to the Christian, Southern radical white Americans who were indeed white Christian nationalists. You have to understand that, right? So when you see Nikki Haley don't want to say what the Civil War really was about. That's what it was about. The South didn't want to get its slaves up. And Lincoln really didn't want to free you either. But he did what was best for the business to preserve the Union. Have to understand this. They won't teach you this in school. Now, we got to look at John Brown. John Brown was an abolitionist, right? Him and his sons, they were white, right? White abolitionists from the South. And they went to war with the Confederacy and killed many Southern white soldiers in the Confederacy because they felt that racism was evil, right? Later, him and his sons would be hung and killed for helping black Americans after they killed many white Southern soldiers, right? So this group has always had an anti-black mentality, and they mix it in with their politics, patriotism, and religion, right? For those that don't know about John Brown, I want you to do the knowledge on John Brown, right? Dick Gregory was a huge fan of John Brown's work, right? And they also have on Amazon. They have a great John Brown series, right? You should check it out. So all whites did not agree with slavery, right? Some did feel like it was ungodly, but this is a white Christian nationalist group. See, white Christian nationalists, you have to look into that word nationalism. And when you think of nationalism, you think of Nazis. See, the Nazis are nothing but nationalists. Nazis, nationalists, that NA, these were nationalists, right? White nationalists. Many America supported the Nazis for a long time, especially white Christian nationalists. We're going to keep going. Let's keep going. Now, the president at the time was Abraham Lincoln, right? He was under fire by white Christian nationalists for freeing the slaves with the Emancipation of Proclamation. Poor Southern white Christian nationalists seen Lincoln as a race traitor and as ungodly for helping black slaves get freedom, right? Although Lincoln still had a superiority complex towards blacks his own self, right? Now, after he freed blacks, he would soon after be killed himself. He would be assassinated at a theater, right? Now, as years pass, black Americans get more freedoms in the South, right? The violence towards blacks only increases. As the KKK begins to rise, now that blacks are getting freedom, the KKK begins to rise. The KKK is a white nationalist group, right? White males. It's nationalism, right? White nationalism. They burn crosses. They carry crosses. They carry American flags, right? This is a Christian radical group, right? So the KKK, never mix that up. That is a white nationalist group, right? A white Christian nationalist group, right? And they vowed that America was losing its Christian values by freeing black Americans and giving them rights, right? Even though black Americans were still didn't have many rights at all. Black Americans still didn't have many rights at all, but it was just the fact that now the playing fields were getting even just a tad bit even, right? White Christian nationalists begin to see fear, right? Begin to have fear. And anytime they have fear, bad things begin to happen, right? So, although they pushed religion, they acted out in violence, right? They would burn crosses in black churches. They would lynch blacks and put xenophobic and anti-black and anti-gay and anti-Jewish rhetoric. Did you hear what I said? Anti-gay, xenophobic, anti-black, anti-woman, right? And anti-gay and anti-Jewish rhetoric. What does that sound like? When you see Kanye West with Nick Fuentes, right? You have to understand Kanye for a long time ran with the Christian ideology. So does Nick Fuentes. So does all of these white male, red pill, patriarchal. This is all the same thing, right? Looking down on the woman, because the Bible says, right? Because the Bible says looking down on Jews. They don't like Jews. They don't like blacks. They don't like gays, right? This is Kanye. So many people don't understand what Kanye gets into fitting in with a Nick Fuentes and the red pill manosphere circle, Sneeko and all them. You gotta understand that's nothing but he's bought into, and he's anti-Jewish, right? Not because Zionism. Many of us know that Zionism is totally wrong. However, Kanye is looking at it from more of a Hitler point of view. You have to understand that Kanye is looking at it from more of a Hitler point of view, right? Where he also don't like blacks, and he's a white male apologist. He said that white males have it the hardest in this country. That's what he said, right? Same thing Candace Owens said. That's the white, and she's big time Christian, right? So you have to understand these are white Christian nationalists. Even you have black white Christian nationalists. Kanye and Candace Owens being one. Hate gays, hate Jews, hate blacks. They got smoke for everybody except the white male. White male Christian nationalists. Understand what I'm saying? I'm not gonna tell you nothing wrong. Now, by 1915, a film called Birth of a Nation, right, comes out and is played at the White House. The president allowed it, right? The film was anti-black and pushed fear to whites that now, since blacks are free, they will come after everything that we have, from our property to our women. As a result, the KKK got more popular across the country, right? So when you see that in today's times, we gotta trumping, we gotta get all these trumping the right wing, white Christian nationalists, right? We gotta get all the brown people out the country, right? We gotta, even if our women don't like it, we're gonna protect them anyway. You have to understand that that's propaganda. That's propaganda. You have to understand that. So we see films used in media, right, to portray blacks as rapists and killers, and and thieves, and and this is putting fear, which makes the Klan rise even more and begin to get more aggressive in real life. So again, we always say media is a tool. Media is a tool. Hitler used it, right? Hitler used media to paint the Jews as these type of people, right? So that way it will be justified when they move in on them, right? So coming out of slavery, living as second-class citizens in America, black Americans were the biggest Christians on the planet. To this day, black women make up the biggest church population in America, ratio-wise. Did you know that? I don't think you knew that. But go down south and talk to some old black women, right? Come across an old church lady, right? An old church sister. Yet, think about this. I was in South Carolina when Dylan Roof shot up the church in Charleston, right? And the next day, many of the black Christians who allowed him to come into the church and slaughter their fellow church members, their family was so deep into the Christian element that they forgave them the next day. That's black Christians for you, right? They forgave him the next day. Now, on the other side of the world, Africa is being colonized at this time. The Berlin Conference was a conference of Western European nations coming together to carve Africa up and get rich off its resources. And I did a build on that, right, in the past. So look into that build. I believe it's called Gangsters in Suits, right? Gangsters in Suits, where I deal with colonialism, right? And I need you to look into that. Now, they enslaved these Africans on their own land and made them dig or pick resources for them. And they also were violent and would kill Africans, men, women, and children included. This is important to this bill because this also was done with a white Christian nationalist undertone. You have to understand that, right? They viewed any person of color who did not live how they lived as a savage. Even though they were the ones causing terror and madness and acting savage, right? You have to understand this. The Berlin Conference, where Africa was divided, right? The French, the Italian, British, right? Germans, Portuguese, Belgium, you name it, right? They took it over. right, for resources. And they enslaved them people in their own land. Just like they enslaved many African Americans, black Americans on their own land, right? Many think it was all chattel slavery. Again, some blacks were already here and were enslaved on their own land. They didn't only do that in Africa and other places like India. India was also colonized. But let's stick to the bill. Let's keep going, right? Now, back to America in the 50s, you had Brown versus the Board of Education. School integration was becoming a law, and white Christian nationalists were super against this. They felt like they were losing their country once again, like they did when blacks got free, right? Now, damn, blacks free, right? Damn, that's bad, but now we gotta go to school with them, right? Now we gotta go to school with them. Now, this is a thing, where again, now the change, you see white Christian nationalists acting out again. Anytime the change is coming for another group to make some type of progress, and you start to see white Americans feel threatened. White American men feel threatened, right? And they don't like it. So they seen these people in power who were helping black children get a better education as communists, right? If you were helping anybody now, you were a communist, right? And as these schools are forcing integration, you're seeing little black kids going to school having to be chauffeured by the police department, right? You see grown people spitting at them, holding signs saying "Keep our school white," right? You see little 5-year-old black kids being spit at and cursed at, right? This is white Christian nationalism. They didn't want to change. They thought it was ungodly. They thought this type of change. We're not supposed to go to school with them. Why is doing that? That's going against God's way. This is xenophobia, right? Nigga, go home. Many white Christian nationalists began to pull their white children out of public schools to avoid the integration, and they put them into private Christian schools, right? Private Catholic schools, right? And this is a way to keep blacks out of the school. With the private school, you could push a Christian element on it, and you could also charge for it to keep blacks away from your children. So this is the origin of private schools in America, right? You have to understand that. Another thing where the Christian element is being used to hide the real agenda, and the real agenda was xenophobia. As women also began to get more freedoms in the 50s and 60s, white Christian nationalist men began to feel like America was losing its Christian origin and values. Blacks got free, schools got integrated, and now women want equality? For white Christian nationalists, these were dark times, right? Blacks got free, schools integrated, and now women want equality. Gays beginning to get rights and come out the closet. Right? This was threatening the white males, the white nationalist male, the white Christian nationalist male, right? He feels like he's losing this country. Man, make America great again. What's going on? Right? Now, again, as I said before, the KKK is a Christian radical white nationalist group, right? And don't never get it twisted. They are indeed a white Christian nationalist group. Many white American children and parents joined this group in the early 1900s, or they knew someone that was affiliated. That's a fact, right? It was as common as joining the Boy Scouts in some towns and cities, sources say. They believed that they were taking the country back for God, and they believed that America belonged to the white man, and they didn't want that to change by any means. Hear what I said? They believed that America belonged to the white man, not the white woman, the white man. And they didn't want that to change by any means. They would burn black churches and kill black kids. So religion was not the issue here. It was white supremacy masquerading as religion, just like always, right? That's what we talk about, right? That's what this build is about. Now, many black Americans were forced to move out of major cities in the early 1900s because they were forced out of the South and out of small American towns due to violent racism that white Christian nationalists enforced on them. The Christian nationalists never believed that they were to live equally with other races. They felt that God made them superior to other races, and they wanted America to keep it that way. But the changes were happening, right? Sundown towns were rampant, right? And sundown towns still exist to this day in America, right? It's still sundown towns in America. America is so bad. We have this thing where many blacks in America always repping a city, right? I'm from Detroit. I'm from New York. I'm from Chicago. I'm from Atlanta. I'm from Houston. I'm from South Carolina. Wherever you from, my nigga. Did this. I'm gonna keep it a being with you. The moment that you move out of your major city in your state, your ass is in small town Mississippi if you in America, nigga. Don't ever get that shit confused. You better know where the fuck you at. You better know where you at, my nigga. Better know where you at. You know what I'm saying? The city, the only reason that the city is like that for the most part is also because of white Christian nationalists, right? A thing called white flight. As blacks were getting ran out of the cities, the southern towns, and coming into big cities, whites didn't want to live with them niggas. Right? Whites didn't want to live with you. So they moved into suburbs outside the city. And let you stay in the city. And the city began to fall apart. But now they begin to take the cities back by way of gentrification. They want to be back downtown. So now they're taking the cities back and pushing you niggas back the other way. It's another story for another time, right? White victimhood, right? White victimhood is a big thing for Christian nationalists, right? Christian white nationalists always historically use victimhood as an attempt to get their way. And their way simply was, white people should always be first in America, and especially white males. They didn't like Dr. King, although he was a Christian. They didn't like Jesse Jackson. They didn't like Al Sharpton, right? So they don't like Christians unless you are a white male Christian. Or you maybe a Kanye West, Candace Owens, white male apologist Christian, right? See, a black Christian was only good if he was okay with being treated as a lesser equal. So Dr. King was a threat to Christian white nationalists, right? And they also seen Dr. King as a communist traitor, right? Communist, trying to change race. Like, yo, why you trying to get down with us? They despised him for that, right? So many whites begin to say, yo, we losing our country, and all the things that you see Trump and Ben Shapiro and all these white males from the right wing, we losing our country, the country's changing, and this and that. And the white male, you hear Kanye say stuff like white males have no rights anymore, right? White males, and that's the white victimhood, right? That's the white victimhood that the white Christian nationalists use for political gain. And that's not new. That's old, right? That's old. Reverse racism. When Trump first got in, he wanted to say that he wanted to give white kids reparations, right, for DEI programs and affirmative action, because he believed that whites have been mistreated, right? That's what he believes. That's a white Christian nationalist tactic, right? The white victimhood standpoint. I've seen them all use it, from Theo Vaughn to Joe Rogan. All of them use it, right? Now, Dr. King was a black Christian preacher who was pushing civil rights and equal treatment for black Americans, and he got very popular, even popular by some whites. But white Christian nationalists rejected Dr. King. They seen him as a communist, and they seen him as a troublemaker asking for the white man's freedom. When he criticized the war in Vietnam, they seen him as a non-patriot also, and not even a Christian anymore, because to them, Christian is tied with patriotism, even if the war is unjust. Dr. King was killed. Later, he would get a holiday. Christian nationalists did not like this either, and they protested against giving the civil rights leader a national holiday, right? And I think it was some states who wouldn't do it at all, right? So, if you're a Christian, why you ain't got no love for Dr. King, right? Because you're not a Christian. You're a white Christian nationalist. And it's a huge difference. Now, the white Christian nationalists also did not agree with interracial dating, obviously, and they did not like when the laws changed to make interracial dating legal in America, some states more than others. Again, the Christian nationalists felt like they were losing their country because they didn't believe that race mixing was the way that God wanted it to be, right? So the white Christian nationalist is against interracial dating. Right? Remember that the Nazis are white Christian nationalists. The Make America Great Again, Make Germany Great Again, going to war with the books, right? Using fear, using media tactics, propaganda, right? This is all the same thing. Nazis, nationalism. Understand that. Right? Now, the white Christian nationalist has film heroes, patriotism, Christian characters, white heroes, good guys saving the day. White Christian depiction movies, all white cast in a part of the world that's historically black, right? Mel Gibson, right? With his what was the movie called? You know, he had that came out in the early 2000s. It was his Jesus movie, right? Where, you know, he basically depict himself. He depict in Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, and it's just mostly white, right? This is all propaganda too. This is all propaganda by the white Christian nationalists. Later we will find out that Mel Gibson is a big time racist who don't like Jews and don't like blacks either. He don't like blacks and he don't like Jews either. Mel Gibson is a white Christian nationalist. We Were Soldiers. Mel Gibson was in We Were Soldiers. Right? That's a patriotism element film. John Wayne. They love John Wayne. Right? White Christian nationalist. He was also a racist. No shock there. Right? So, your cowboy Indian film. Right? This is what they was raised on. This is what the white Christian nationalists was raised on. Now, Clint Eastwood, big time racist, right? Big time. Many say, many don't like when I say that about Clint Eastwood, but fuck it. Now, after 9/11 happens, America has become more patriotic, right? We all stick together again, despite our differences. However, white Christian nationalists become even more anti-Arab, anti-Islam, similar to being anti-Asian after Pearl Harbor, right? Now, white Christian nationalists wanted revenge for what happened in their country, and their hate for Islam continues to this day, right? So the white Christian nationalists, after 9/11, found another reason to be xenophobic and anti-Islam, right? Anti-Islam, which is part of what we're seeing on today's campuses, right? That blowing back to the Stone Age mentality by white Christian nationalists who don't fear at all, who don't give two shits about bombs being dropped on brown kids, right? On brown religious kids. They don't care about that, right? They don't care. They pass that they giving gun giveaways in church, right? They shoot at they go to the range with the kids, with the babies, right? They don't care about no other groups, right? They, and that's the white Christian nationalist element. Now, uh, so you drop a bomb. You talk to him about dropping a bomb on a kid in Gaza, and they have no emotion. But if they find out that somebody at the church is gay, it's the biggest deal ever, right? Find out that uh, you know it's just a big walking contradiction of good and it's good and evil, right? And they all walk in contradictions. Now, in 2007, 2008, Obama comes into office. And just like always, white Christian nationalists begin to get upset about the change. Remember, it's always the change. It's a change that becomes a threat to white Christian nationalist males, right? And to them, God's white country. A mixed black man with a black wife named Obama is now the president of a country, and he wants to help poor and middle class people and even help the LGBTQ community. Christian white nationalists begin to carry on the tradition of their long-term hate and xenophobia and white supremacy rhetoric, right? It only grows after Obama becomes president, right? In this campaign, it was war on Obama. It was war on Obama, right? Many was calling him the Antichrist. Many white Christian nationalists were calling him the Antichrist because he was black. They were calling his woman a man, right? His woman became a man. They took shots at his sexuality, right? Things that were not so Christian. But these white Christian nationalists, remember, they aren't real Christians. They just use Christian. They just use Christian nationality as a way to push their agenda for control. That's all they care about. Now, Trump begins to question Obama. And if he questions Obama if he is American or not. He don't even think Obama is American, right? And this is where you start to see the open xenophobia come back, right? This is where many white Christian nationalists first fell in love with Trump, right? As a political figure. McCain chose not to win. McCain chose not to win that way, right? He didn't go that way. R.P. to McCain, right? However, Trump seen that, and Trump began to run with that. So it's a market for that, right? 2012, Obama wins the presidency again. Much of the country are happy, right? Most of the country is happy. The white Christian nationalists are upset, and now they riot, right? Teenagers at Ole Miss, the South, right, Mississippi, begin to riot, right? Christian nationalism, right? Christian nationalism. The mentality wasn't gone. It wasn't gone, and it'll never go away. As black Americans continued to be killed, Obama's second term from 2011 to 2017, by police, right? By police and unjust shootings. White Christian nationalists came up with Back to Blue, right? Back to Blue, to show their support to the police, even if the blacks that were killed was on tape, right? And unjustified, clearly unjustified. They didn't care. And as the Christian nationalists that they were, they made sure to tie the flag and cross into political beliefs, which is rooted in racism, sexism, xenophobia, and homophobia, right? Hillary ran against Trump too, right? And, she lost too, because the white Christian nationalist is a patriarchal man. And black American men who have bought into this, who have lived under a patriarchal system, many are also, they also have deep patriarchal views, right? From the brainwashing. So Trump ran off of Make America Great Again. But what did that mean? It means stop giving black and brown people equal rights. Stop giving LGBTQ people equal rights. Stop abortion. Ban books that are not Christian based. Bring patriarchy back to the society. Stop giving women rights. Get rid of civil rights programs. Stop talking about black slavery existing because it makes white children feel guilty, and it teaches white children the truth that's unfiltered. Stop letting brown, black, and Asian immigrants in the country, right? Let us have our guns because we feel we may need to go to war with the government again if they don't give us our way, right? This is a white man's world. And that's what Tupac was referring to, right? That's what Tupac was referring to. Now, again, as I touched on, the white Christian nationalist is at the root. However, you do have Latino Christian nationalists, Latino white Christian nationalists, right? You have black Christian nationalists, right? And they all follow this. So when you see Jason Whitlock and he's running with the Christian element, but he's anti-black, he's anti-woman, he's anti-everything, and he's a white male apologist, you see that that's his lane, right? White Christian nationalist, same as Candace Owens, same as all the Latinos for Trump, right? This is white Christian nationalism, right? White Christian nationalists were at the root of all these incidents, right? As I said earlier, the shooting in Charleston, right? The El Paso shooting, Timothy McVeigh with the Oklahoma City bombing, right? These are white Christian nationalists who feel like their country is changing and it's the browning of America, and they feel like they are losing the country, right? This is how they feel, and they act out. When they feel threatened, they act out, right? White Christian nationalists continue to speak about taking their country back, right? Making the country white again, making women less powerful again, getting rid of books on slavery, banning abortion, giving police complete immunity even though they kill mostly minorities, forcing their beliefs on others, right? The tiki torches, right? The tiki torches, right? And although Trump has said himself that he is not a Christian, it does not matter to white Christian nationalists because they are not really Christians either. They are masquerading as Christians to push their racist, sexist, homophobic, and political views onto others, and they want to use Trump as a catalyst to push their agenda of pro-white man, the man dominating the house and the woman, and keeping white Americans as their number one priority in the country. Right? Now, January 6th, after Trump loses the election to Joe Biden, Trump and his followers, mostly Christian nationalists, refuse to take no for an answer. They protest at the Capitol. They hold churches. The whole churches show up, right? Churches, buses show up to the Capitol with flags and crosses, right? Some cops let the group in willingly, but many forced their way in, right? And many of them even beat up police, right? It's all on tape. Now, when Trump gets in 2024 to really 2025, he frees them all. Right? Now, white victimhood is taking over on the right-wing podcast around this time, right? White men claiming that they are being mistreated and targeted because of other groups like minorities, women, and LGBT, etc. are getting rights and benefits to help them have an even playing field. Racist conspiracy theories make a resurgence as always. Michelle Obama is a man. Kamala is a DEI hire. Biden is a clone. Whites are actually the ones oppressed. Slavery, all pushed by right-wing personalities like Joe Rogan, Alex Jones, Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, right, and more. Red states led by white Christian nationalist men have started to try to push their beliefs on everyone in their states already, right? Oklahoma superintendent forces the Bible on the students. Right? Every school gotta have a Bible, but not just a regular Bible. They have to have the Trump Bible. You see what's going on? Now, Christians, right, at this time, Christians speak on if Trump didn't win, which he did win, they said they were willing to use their guns and go to war. Another civil war. Right? This is a radical group. It's a radical group. Project 2025 was put together by the Heritage Foundation, a big-time rich white Christian nationalist group who donated to Trump, right? And Trump denied that he had any involvement with them. But now that he's in, we see he's doing everything that they said that they were going to do. So we are now living under Project 2025. We are, right? American Christian nationalists, mostly evangelical, are also super pro-Israel, right? Which is Trump is. They donate lots of money to support them yearly, and they believe that this is the Holy Land and that they travel to it frequently. So many Christian nationalists are anti-Palestine. Palestine and Palestinians are second-class citizens in Israel, and it's a norm to them, right? But this is why you see Christian nationalists so upset with the college students protesting for Gaza. The college kids are standing up for poor, mistreated brown people. And they are against white Christian nationalists. They are against the white Christian nationalist ideology, right? Historically, they have said that they see themselves above other groups and don't want to share resources, right? So when you see Trump going to war with Harvard, right? That's white Christian nationalism too, because the white Christian nationalist loves Israel. He's tied to Israel, right? And now, if you challenge Israel, you are challenging the white Christian nationalist system also, right? So now he's threatening to take your funding, right? He's threatening to take away your free speech, right? It's crazy times we living in, right? The white Christian nationalist loves his guns. He loves his guns more than he loves God, right? He ties guns in. He ties his God ties in with patriotism, right? And going to war and busting his hammer, right? He lives in his ego. He lives in his fragile male ego, right? He does. Now, that was a long build, right? That was a very long build. But I really needed to touch on that, right? When you look at DeSantis in Florida, again, you're seeing white Christian nationalists, right? That's white Christian nationalism happening in Florida. Let's see what else we got. For decades, the Federal Bureau of Investigation has routinely warned its agents that white supremacists and far-right militant groups and its investigates often have links to law enforcement. Yet the Justice Department has no national strategy designed to protect the communities policed by these dangerously compromised law enforcers. As other nation grapples with how to reimagine public safety in the wake of protests following the police killing of George Floyd, it is time to confront and resolve the persistent problem of explicit racism in law enforcement. I know about these routine warnings because I received them as a young FBI agent preparing to accept an undercover assignment against neo-Nazi groups in Los Angeles, California in 1992. But you don't have to take my word for it. A eradicated version of a 2006 FBI, right? So chief KKK members have ties to the law enforcement, right? Back the blue, right? Slave catchers, white Christian nationalists is at the root, right? They hate Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is a feminist. It's a white female feminist artist, and they hate Taylor Swift. They hate science. They hate the universities. They hate change. If you are living in America right now, and even if you're living outside of America, you're starting to see this. When you see people like Conor McGregor bringing fear into white Ireland, right? You see in Western Europe, Elon supporting the AFD, right? White Christian nationalism is on the rise, and we are living under it right now. But if you didn't know what white Christian nationalism is, you do know now. It's even in hip hop now. You got people like Tom McDonald, right? White Christian nationalism has invaded hip hop. We don't listen to that shit though. but it's a market for it. So this group, right? This group that has always pushed fear, right? They still at it again, 2025. When you look at the MAGA and you look at the red pill manosphere, you are looking at white male, patriarchal, Christian nationalism. On that note, family, we are out. Peace.